Hello everyone, you can call me Daedra, and like many of you browsing these forums, I'm a day 1 vanilla player who passionately loves and deeply cares about classic World of Warcraft. I want to bring up a controversial topic, and no, that topic is not layering. I'm talking about Blizzard creating legacy servers for the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. We're still in beta for classic servers, and it might seem that I'm putting the cart before the horse, but I felt an emergency need to speak up before something slips into Blizzard's head. So, when I first saw the interviews from the alpha in Irvine, this streamer Tips asked the devs how do they feel about moving into TBC and Wrath of the Lich King. To which the devs replied, I quote, "Be sure to let us know what you and your communities believe is the right way to go." This triggered an immediate red light for me. First, this streamer is most definitely not representative of the entire WoW Classic community. In fact, I would say he isn't representing even half of it, but rather a small and vocal minority. That's fine, and I wouldn't have any issues with it if Blizzard don't look at him as some sort of chairman or president who can advocate the correct way for such an important decision. Few days later, when the beta launched, I was checking out some streams, and I heard him specifically answering this question, saying that after Naxxramas we should go into TBC with only justification being that this is the correct way. And with this statement I severely disagree. To be frank, there are two main ways for Blizzard to tackle the TBC and Wrath of the Lich King topic. They can either advance the classic realms into the future expansions, or create separate legacy servers for those two expansions. I don't have much against the later option, despite that it will somewhat dilute the very condensed and flourishing WoW community, classic WoW community I mean. However, I have a big problem if they decide to forcefully advance the entire classic experience into TBC a few years from now. In order to have a constructed and meaningful conversation around this topic, I'll first say what will happen if we move into TBC, then I'll discuss what will happen if we don't move into TBC, and then I'll share what is my dream scenario for the entire existence of classic World of Warcraft. The Burning Crusade is, 15 years later, still the best expansion that this game had. However, it's the first step of the downfall that led to the current status of WoW. Many vanilla purists would say that Wrath of the Lich King did that, but in fact Wrath of the Lich King was simply the straw that broke the camel's back. Everyone from the classic WoW community understands how important is immersion and the core RPG mechanics that shine in vanilla. That's why we're here 12-13 years after the initial experience. So there are two major components that first appear in the Burning Crusade that cause these highly valued principles to be severely damaged. The first of them is flying mounts. I'm not gonna go into details because at this point this is like beating a dead horse with a stick, but this is by far one of the most damaging things the immersion can suffer from, and it had some big gameplay implications as well, especially on world PvP. The most overlooked topic, which I've seen actually only one content creator to speak about, is the introduction of sanctuary capitals. This is by far the most damaging component to the interaction between different factions, because it has not only a gameplay implication, but also a psychological one as well. In classic WoW, the most core and memorable experience outside of PvE raiding is relying on this interaction with the opposite faction, fighting over scarce resources, or creating great rivalries with members of the opposing faction just by meeting them at the world day after day, week after week. And these rivalries also happen on a guild level as well. Or another major component is attacking the opposite faction's capitals. There are many players who enjoy visiting those enemy cities in a large raid group, slaughtering everyone on their way, or just chilling in a secret inn away from the guards. How can you do this when there are no longer many people in these cities and the only place everyone is at is as pacifist as you get? The famous line from that time, "Red is dead," and many other big and small things that make your journey colorful and your experience memorable are simply removed with this one decision. By introducing a sanctuary capital where everyone spends most of their time, you make the opposing players subconsciously get used to each other, when in fact they should be enemies. If you're an alliance, for example, instead of seeing those hairy cows, the Taurens, occasionally and trying to put their models lying flat on the ground, you see them sitting next to you, taking gear and quests from the same vendors as you do. You subconsciously get used to the fact that the normal interaction with them is not to kill them. So next time you see them in the world, you will wave and hug them, and even if they're killing your quest mobs or grinding on your spot. And this is a problem. From this point onwards, it's only downhill, because a large, substantial portion of players' interaction is eliminated. I have already spent too much time talking on this, but I hope I made my point clear why the Burning Crusade started the fall, and it will do it again, because those elements can't be removed and replaced in the game. They're central to that expansion. And we know what will happen from there on. I believe the story is well too known. Wrath of the Lich King will go out, and then things will go even more overboard. So, great Daedra, let's have classic WoW stay at 60 forever. Sounds great, right? The truth is that the game will probably be healthy for the next 2 or maximum 3 years, depending on how Blizzard pays out the content. After that, there will be a gradual decline even among the dedicated player base, because more and more people would have achieved as much as they can, and will stop feeling the need to play and log in. With the less people you have on the realm, the less people to group with, the less people to PvP against, the less guilds to join, less items on the auction house, and even if a fresh off the boat new player decides that he will play actively, he'll be discouraged by not finding people even for 5-mans, let alone Molten Core or Blackwing Lair. This is not an assumption, this is a fact. The result of low population was visible during original WoW and could be seen in recent years with how private servers population developed over time. Okay, so what is the way forward? TBC is bad, staying at 60 forever is bad. This is my ideal scenario. I would dare call it only a dream at this point. I wish for Blizzard to create new content for classic World of Warcraft. This doesn't necessarily mean new spells, new talents, but they could very easily extend the existing raid roster with 1 or 2 more additions. There are in fact empty zones on the maps where those raids could be placed. Adding a few new items and tier sets won't be much of a hassle, and that could almost double the game's longevity. Honestly, the sky's the limit, because these additions won't be built upon the crumbling foundations of flying mounts and sanctuary cities, but on the immersive and RPG-centric gameplay pillars that make classic WoW viable 15 years later. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you share my opinion, make sure that our voices are heard. Hit a thumbs up, share and comment. If you want more content post-Nax from us like I do, Blizzard will need time to prepare it, so the sooner we tell them that this is what we want, the better.